Located just about 50 miles from Somalia border, Dadaab refugee camp in northeastern Kenya is one of the oldest and largest refugee settlements in the world. It's currently home to over 250,000 people.
It's amazing. They've literally established a city within a region that didn't exist in Kenya before the refugees came.
My own family settled in Dadaab when we fled the war in Somalia, and I spent almost 15 years of my life in the camp. But the future of this sprawling camp now hangs in the balance. Kenya announced plans to close the facility, citing security concern. Some aid organizations began to withdraw. And US President Donald Trump launched a travel ban blocking Somali refugees from entering the United States. I am currently based in the UK, but I came back to see how people inside Dadaab are trying to cope with these challenges and ask them about the impossible choices they have to make.
My name is Moulid Hujale. In this documentary, I'll take you through the complex camp that I grew up in and show you how the refugees have turned this temporary settlement into a thriving city.
Alaso Ibrahim fled Somalia at a young age when the war broke out and had to walk for several days to cross the border into Kenya. She is among the first group of refugees who came to Dadaab.
annagoo joogna meel la dhahayo beerxaani ayuu qabta ee dhacday dagaalada ay dhaceen waxaan xasuustaa inii aabahay uu meesha ku dhaawacmay in haddana kala firnay annaga iyo aabihii saa u kala qaxeen dhobley baa imaan dhobley birta dheerana laga soo qaaday.
She grew up in the camp, got married, and now runs a clothes shop to support her children.
Horta qaxootiga waxyaabo badan aan ka soo marnay ha ahaada isagoo lama degaan oo banaan haddii la imaadayna ninba fikradiisa ay ku shaqaystay adiga dad badan oo group ah oo iskaashado ilaahay u kala barkeeyay maskaxiyan ku wada shaqaystay ahay haddii maanta ay maxal dhig jiray sharciyan leeyihiin horumarka intan uu ka badnaan lahaa haddii la dhihi lahaa san deegaan baa laga dhigay qaxootiga rasmi u degin waxyaabo badan baa laga arki lahaa oo horumar ah.
But due to Kenya's strict refugee policy, refugees cannot become citizens and are not even allowed to move outside the camp. Even for emergency medical reasons, refugees have to apply for a travel document to leave the camps.
Thank you.
The lack of freedom of movement was one of the most depressing things I experienced living in this camp. I remember I used to go to the UN office to apply for a travel authorization just to go to Nairobi for my studies or even visit family friends. Despite the restrictions on movement, refugees transformed the isolated desert camps into a booming business hub. There are schools, restaurants, hair salons, and even an ice factory. The camp business generates about $25 million annual turnover, according to a recent report. The report also showed that the locals benefit up to $14 million per year.
This is the main market. It's as old as Dadaab. When the first wave of refugees came in 1991, the first thing they did was to set up makeshift shops. Over time, it has evolved into a huge hub that is serving not only the refugees, but also the host community from the surrounding area.
Dr. Idil Osman is an academic who studies media, migration, diaspora, and conflict. She has recently worked on a multi-year research program on the drivers of migration in the Horn of Africa.
If you look at the creativity that goes into the entrepreneurial abilities of the Somali refugees in Dadaab, it's amazing. They've literally established a city within a region that didn't exist in Kenya before the refugees came. So there's an entire local economy that is surrounding refugees and what they bring to the table. So it's important that we emphasize that.
أنا أحب ما شاء ودكيجا وقالت هذا إسكت حقلا شرعي مليه وضدس نيروبي وحن كجسوا أديك تملهن صومالي النفع نقع عبسني حتى كده حقاتها درك ضدك كان صدان أي شرعية ذلك سيدا سهرت ماشي أسكت شقيستا.
If you look at the interaction in the host community in that particular region has benefited a lot from the economic contributions that the refugees have been able to make. Refugees in camps generally tend to be very restricted in terms of registration, ID, movement. So the businesses inside the camp rely a lot on middlemen that are, on the outside, and they tend to be from the surrounding host communities. So they've been able to find job opportunities, economic opportunities by partnering up with the refugees in Dadaab, and that has contributed to their life, and it has contributed to the economy of that whole region.
The UN provides food rations to refugees every month, but over the last couple of years, the rations were reduced by up to 30% due to funding shortage. However, as Alaso explains, there's more to life than just food.
ilmihii dugsi bay ay rabaan waxbarashay rabaan qalin bay rabaan buug bay rabaan ardaxay rabaan hooy quruxsan ay ku saaxdaan bay rabaan in walba maxaa ficiisa wuxuu qabo ayuu rabaa sidaa darteed ay shaqo abuurkii ugu bilowday.
For me, education was the only thing that kept me going when I was here. It gave me a glimmer of hope and a reason to dream beyond Dadaab. I'm going to visit my former high school and meet some of the students who are also working so hard to build a future outside of the camp.
I'm really very excited to be back in my high school. This used to be my class. Assalamu alaikum, man. Welcome back. Thanks so much. Thank you.
This is 4B. We are doing revisions. They are engaged in group discussions. It is learners-based discussions.
Can I join the class?
Yeah, feel free to join.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome back.
Which group? Can I join you guys?
In 2 months' time, they will be sitting for their final high school examinations. I remember during my time here, I used to stay all day in school to make the most of the daylight because I had no electricity at home to continue studying in the night. This time of the year is also crucial for students because frustrations about life after school builds up.
For now, I'm very happy to do my final examination. After that, I would like to join university to do a course called software engineering. But there is no opportunities in refugees camp. There are students who have finished secondary education, then there is no job, they are just at home. They have no option.
I feel very privileged to have got an opportunity, but imagine these young men who have all it takes to excel in life but are not having opportunities. It means there is no scholarship opportunity, there is no prospect of employment. Even those who have performed well are not doing anything because there's no job opportunities here.
Although Somalis make up the vast majority, Dadaab is also home to other nationalities from neighboring countries, including Ethiopia, Sudan, and Uganda. I made many friends from these different communities when I was here. Dadaab is also politically connected to the wider region. The camp's security situation changed dramatically when Kenyan forces invaded Somalia in 2011 to fight the Al-Qaeda-linked group Al-Shabaab. The militants retaliated, targeting security forces in the camp. Innocent refugees were then scapegoated by the police.
hadda gurigan maanta dhisay maanta qarxi halka uu ka dhacay ah saako kalma kan gacanta ka qaado soo oo qarxi dhacay baan ugu soo gashay oo ugu garaacday wuxuu waxa uu muusa galabsan marka ayada ah wadad masaakiin ay hayeen oo xabis korka banaan ku jiraan.
The overall narrative is that terrorism in and of itself is affecting the whole region. And so there has to be a regional approach towards it. And scapegoating the refugees is a very simplistic way to do away with tackling the underlying problems.
The Kenyan government claims refugees in Dadaab are harboring terrorists, and the camp serves as a sanctuary where some of the deadliest attacks on its citizens were plotted. But in the 15 years I spent in Dadaab, I never saw any refugee involved in a terrorist activity. But rather, refugees are actively involved in the day-to-day operations of the camp. They have a well-established leadership structure, democratically elected by fellow refugees. Idris Yusuf is the chair of the Sports Youth Committee. He was only 4 years old when he arrived in the camp. He is now a father of 5 and manages the camp's football tournament.
waxaan leenahay youth chairman aan leenahay oo dhalinyarada ah marka annaga ismaamulno annaga shaqooyinkeena waxayna kala qabsano dhalinyarada isku keenayno oo si aysan muqaadaraad iyo waxyaabo kale iyo aysan u aadin ayaan maaragtay aan kubadda aan isku keenayna oo ooga shaqeynayna gaalskeeda xaq tag dabcan marka hadda aan rabnay inaan shirna camal xafiis aan meel fariisano ama noo calaamaysan malaha guryaheena ku shirnaa anagoo dhulkeena iska fariisanayno oo guddiga isku yeeranayno oo ku shirayno go'aanka bari aan sameyn lahayn halkaas aan ku soo saarana
maalin walba noo wadataa waray maxay taa warkeen ay maxaa gaaranay isda gaadhiga siyaasiga oo ninka rabo
When there are no football games, young people spend their free time in the market, where they discuss Somalia and world politics over spicy Somali tea.
I support Boris Johnson to pull out the European Union in UK. Ingiriisku wuxuu ahaa boqortooyo culus oo adduunka maamulkiisa muhiimka ah. Midowga yar markay gashay way u dhamaatay cardaadiqay noqotay. Poland, Croatia, Montenegro, Hungarian, Austria, Budapest, Sofia, Warsaw, Kiev yaa laga soo hayaamay. midowga Yurub baa lagu jira shaqadii dadka Ingiriisku abalagreen lahayd abalagreenan
Drought and conflict is still driving more and more people from Somalia into Dadaab. But Kenya is determined and is doing everything it can to close the camps. I was one of the lucky ones to get out of Dadaab voluntarily and go back to Somalia before moving to the UK to again escape violence. Like me, Ifrah Daqane fled her home country a second time. The mother of 7 children first came to Dadaab in 2011 from Jowhar in southern Somalia.
أنا waxaan ka soo guuray gobolka Shabeellaha Dhexe ee Jowhar. Waxaan ku noolaa Jowhar, waxaan iska ahay beer falato. Fasal sisina tabcada fasal galay, fasal murday, fasal waxa la tabcada digirto kaleento, fasal yaayado kaleento. Hadda anaga iska nool iska beer falato ah. Meesha dagaal iyo dhibaato nagu qabsadeen, waan iska soo qaxnay. Hadda waxa imaanay Dadaab.
In May 2016, only 5 years after Ifrah got settled in the camp, Kenya announced plans to close the camps and send Somali refugees back to their country.
Kenya wants Dadaab to either be shut down or for a lot of support, financial support, resources to come from the West, from the international community, right? And so the Dadaab refugees fortunately have become bargaining chips, right? And so they're bargaining with them in order to benefit themselves.
The UN Refugee Agency has been supporting voluntary repatriation program through which over 80,000 people have returned to Somalia.
والله أنا وإسك في عنا جوجن إسك في عنا ما شاء الله إسك أخمن وكال إسك أرجعنا ديرها ودن كنا ودن في عنا قضي هذا الدولة ذا كرلتي إس ديوان جلي كاركين إسك ديوان جلي Somali هذا أنا قد أنا مقدشة يقرنت مقدشة إسك ديوان جلي.
Disappointed with what she found in Somalia, Ifrah has been struggling with the painful idea of going back to Dadaab.
مقدشة دام تجي قد كل يعني الأقاليم أنت اللي قبلنا هذا أما جناحسي أما maalgelintii ama caafimaadkii iyo isheeg waxbarashadii iyo hooyigii marka hore noola sharxay in la siiyo oo magaalada Muqdisho lagu qaabilo maana ka helin.
On 14th October 2017, she narrowly escaped death following a deadly truck bomb explosion in Mogadishu, which killed hundreds of people.
maanta qaraxa dhacay waxa waaye anaga waa baxnay meel baan looga yeeray raashin ka qaadanayna meeshii anaga joogno oo feelka ku jirno horta dhibaatadan ay dhacday qaraxa doo dhacay banaanka doo soo baxnay dawladda Soomaaliya meesha qarax ka dhacay dhibaatada ka dhacday korka xirtay awadi meesha ku barinay subaxii la siinaa ka soo baxnay meeshii aan go'aan waxaan ku gaaray dad ilmo dhashan waa iska dhib badanta beerka waa bukaa awlaad ku joogto wax ku baranayeen xasda walba kuwan la baxsay meesha aad ka keentay shalay ama iskaga celisaan ay ku roontaa Kenya hadda 6 bilood aan joogaa 6 biloodna xabadna maana maqlin qaraxna ma maqlin maskaxdana waa noo dagtay intaas wax loo dhigtaba lahayn.
She may have found a relative peace in Dadaab, but Ifrah is now facing a daunting challenge she never had imagined. The Kenyan government stopped registration of new refugees.
Ayaddan marka imaano ku soo noqonay Kenya waxaan rabnay in aan kaarkeena noola furo oo kaarkeena hore aan dib u helnaa rajadeena ku weyneed marka imaanna hadda kaarkeena anaga waa ii sheeg waxa la yiraahdo dawladda Kenya diiday.
Today she's taking all her children to the office of the United Nations Refugee Agency to follow up on her case. It's a long walk from her shelter under a relentless scorching sun, a trek she had been enduring for 6 months since she returned.
Finally, Ifrah and her children came to the UNHCR compound. We are not allowed to film beyond this point. We'll wait for her here and see what she comes out with.
Without official registration, she and her children cannot access some of the basic rights other refugees enjoy. She is vulnerable to police harassment and even detention. Although a Kenyan High Court blocked the decision to close the camps in 2017, there are renewed calls to shut the complex facility again. In February 2019, the Kenyan government wrote to UNHCR to close the camps within 6 months. This means refugees have to make an impossible choice. Either risk everything and return to Somalia, which is currently not stable, or keep struggling to survive in an increasingly unbearable conditions in the camp.
waxaan dareemay murugo badan waayo Soomaali hadda dadka ma ka sahay oo meel hadda hooy igama horeey wax ila dhashay oo ehelkaygan igama horeeyo hatta waxaan dhamaanta Soomaali aad ilmahaaga gacanta qabsad waxa ku korrana oo wiil oo 17 jir maanta uu yahay oo maaragtay nabadna wadanka iisa ka jirin wixii dhib halka ku soo gaaray soo aad mas'uul kama tihid.
The situation in Somalia is very security sensitive. There's a lot of instability, there's a lot of problems going on, not just with terrorism, but also general instability because of the weak and fragile political institutions that still exist. Conflict is still going on. So I think the idea that all refugees in Dadaab can go back to Somalia and the camp can therefore be shut down is unachievable. You don't want people to stay in camps where they are confined. You want them to be able to get out there and take advantage of the opportunities that exist.
Kenya dadkan xaq bay igu leeyihiin UN xaq bay ku leedahay ayada dhulkeedii baan deganin magangaliyaan u ahayn sida hadda Mareykanka oo kale UNHCR dadku uu ka qaaday way ka qaateen xagga dib u dejin loo siiyay 5 sano markay joogan xaq baa la siiyay baasaboorro afarta beenajaha ay kuwa kala gooshaan baa la siiyay annaga 27 sano aan deganahay.
There are, young people that are born and raised in Dadaab. They don't know anything other than Kenya. So, people like that, you need to think about their identity and their sense of belonging.
halkaan markaan imanayna waan yareen intaan ku wax baranay meeshii aan naqaanayna waa Kenya waxayna tiraahday waa qaxootiga waan gabagabeynaa
meela aad hadda maba garanayo bade sababtoo waddankaygan dhibkan ugu soo tagaa taalo tanna Kenya waa naga xirtay laakiin hadda meelaan ku noqon doono ama noloshayda ku kaafi doontaa dhaha ma iiga horeysa Soomaaliya.
It's clear that these people have made this place a functioning city. After almost 30 years and 3 generations of refugees, this place is no longer a temporary camp. It's become a functioning city. But the international community and the Kenyan government should change their refugee approach. There should be a new model of refugee management. These people do not need aid. They no longer want to depend on handouts from the UN and from the Kenyan government. They want to live independently. They want to be self-reliant. And they have shown that, they have proven that. All they want is opportunity, the freedom of movement and the right to employment. Until they're given the rights they deserve, it means a great economic potential will be wasted here.